So welcome to our next segment on Champion TV. My name's Kevin Vogel. I'm a Vice President of Virtualization and Cloud here at Champion. I'm here with Dan Powers, who's our Senior Solutions Engineer at Champion. And Dan, I want to discuss Windows 10 today and the upgrade path that people are taking for Windows 10.
Sure.
Okay, and I watched this video of you and Chris Pyle talking about people upgrading, the problems that they're having. UEFI, for instance, which until I saw your segment, I really didn't even know that existed. What are the other challenges? I mean, I know that UEFI, from what I got out of it, a BIOS replacement, is that?
Technically, yeah. So the BIOS kind of still exists, Kevin, right? And again, BIOS has been around since the 80s, right? If you looked at the fun segment I did on that, that's back when people had Sony Walkmans. When's the last time you saw somebody with that, right? Now you got your music on your watch, right? Technology has changed massively. So it really needed an update. And again, BIOS limited to the 16-bit, right? A lot of deficiencies at the time. But what UEFI is, it's really a standard, right? That these companies, Intel, the manufacturer, are all sticking to create a root of trust, right? So as we explained with Mr. Pyle, your cell phone today, right? Whether it's Apple, Android, or so forth, when you power that on, there's part of that can't be reprogrammed, right? It's firmware that's burnt in.
Correct.
So when that turns on, I got a root of trust that starts the chain and says, I cannot be changed. It even does a self-assessment. And then as it loads each feature on top of it, it creates that trust of this is a secure device. That's what UEFI in part of it is trying to do. And Windows, especially Windows 10, when you talk about the secure boot, containerization, measure boot and all that, is it relies on that UEFI piece way down at that BIOS level to initiate that chain of trust.
So it's not really, I need that for Windows 10. I need that for a secure Windows 10 environment.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So again, your options, right? We can go and migrate to Windows 10 today, right? But if you don't do this change, because it requires the hard drive and that master boot record, if you're familiar with that, used to always exist, that goes away. It's reformatted, right? So it has to start it there. You can't do it later. If you don't do it during the Windows 10 install, you're out of luck. If you want to do it later, Kevin, you got to reinstall.
So is there a tool, or I think I heard you developed a tool that can go out, do some analytics, and also do some automation around the process of securing these environments prior to upgrade?
Absolutely. So what we did, and we kind of built this around BigFix.
Okay.
Right? It was one of the tools that we used for endpoint management. And the idea there was to identify systems, right? What systems are capable of running Windows 10? And very simple. Hey, does it have enough memory, hard disk space? We took that right off of Microsoft site, right? So I got inventory instantly. Hey, here's your machines that can go. Here's ones with hardware issues. We did a couple things a little bit further to add content to that. For example, we started getting, for Dell, for IBM, Lenovo, we actually get the warranty information for every single one of your endpoints. So now you can pull a report and say, hey, I got a bunch of machines here that are going to be out of end of life in 60 days, 30 days, or past end of life already. Why go through this process of updating to Windows 10 when you really should replace the hardware, right? Stuff of that.
Exactly.
And the same thing, if you have a few older machines in your environment, now they may be capable of running UEFI, but maybe the BIOS needs to be updated. When's the last time you updated your BIOS on all your endpoints? Well, probably not a while.
Not a while. Hey, by the way, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
And exactly, it's working. But again, if you want to take advantage of this, we find all that stuff beforehand. And we created an automation that would update your BIOS. We even looked at it, which I got your help with, right, Kevin? Was, hey, here's all your apps. Hey, can I give you a report that's going to say, do these apps run under Windows 10?
Exactly.
Right? So it's very important, right?
Well, this is a big jump. A lot of people are still back at 32-bit. We're going to 64, right? I mean, you got to.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because the other issue that I was surprised at, when we went out to some of our customers today and we did an inventory report, and we said, okay, your hardware, right? Most every piece of hardware, 99.9%, 64-bit capable. We did an inventory and said the current systems running Windows 7, Windows 8, how many were 64-bit, how many were 32? Guess what do you think it lied?
90-10, 32-bit.
It was 50-50.
Was it really? Oh, I'm surprised it's that high.
And it was, but and honestly, I think part of that was, they get a new machine and it came 64-bit.
Oh, okay.
But when they went from XP to Windows 7, what did they do? They did an in-place upgrade. They didn't wipe the hard drive. So if it was 32-bit then, it's 32-bit now.
Well, and they also make corporate images to fit every machine. So I'm not going to make two images, one 32 and one 64, so they just deployed a whole bunch of 32s.
Correct.
Right.
So that's what we looked at. Those are the challenges that we found with our customers. We said, hey, how can we help with this? So again, we leverage the tool BigFix.
Right.
So some of the functionalities out of the box, what we did at Champion for our customers is, hey, that warranty stuff, that wasn't we developed that, right? We leveraged the tool to do it,
right.
but we added that. That whole thing for looking at BIOS, that's not something you get out of BigFix. We added it because it's easily extensible, right? So we even looked at, Kevin, because at this point we knew, for example, I got to switch from 32 to 64. I got to switch from BIOS to UEFI. So I know I'm going to wipe your hard drive. So now what do I have to do? If I went to you and did that to you and didn't put your user state back, you'd probably shoot me.
Well, and if there's documents there that I just need because I haven't put them on, even though you're supposed to copy them to the network, we know.
We know, right?
My documents.
But even your bookmarks, your sticky notes.
Right.
You want those, right? And you necessarily don't copy that to OneDrive, right?
Correct.
So we used the Microsoft tool, again, standard technology, and we incorporated this to copy the user state off. But what we found at some of our customers, Kevin, and I'll admit the IT department was the worst. We started doing this and they were like, hey, what's the average of moving someone? Well, I got to use the user state off. We put Windows 10 down. We didn't get into the software part, but redo the software, put the user state back. We hit some of the IT department and guess how big their user state profile was? Just take a guess.
I don't know, how many terabytes?
It wasn't quite the terabytes,
okay.
but yeah, you're talking a couple gigs, right? And your average user just shouldn't have that much. So we even added that into the pre-report. Hey, when we flagged them, hey, here's a bunch of machines, because quite honestly, in that IT example I gave you, what did they have? Kevin, they had a whole set of directories with ISO images.
Right.
Why am I backing that up, moving it around and back in place? There's no reason to, right?
Correct.
So this was all the content that Champion put on top of it. Now the real kicker was this. And when we originally did this, there was other vendors trying to do this as well, was that switch, updating the BIOS. And then at that point is to switch that machine into UEFI mode, because it has to be done before Windows 10 goes down.
Right.
It was manual. So if you had to go do 1,000 machines, very difficult.
Yeah, so like SneakerNet in the old days, right?
So what we did is Windows PE, because we're doing this all over the network, we actually injected the ability to switch that BIOS to UEFI during the Windows PE process.
Wow. No matter which manufacturer it was?
Correct. So what we currently do, and I'll tell you right now, being honest, we got Dell and we got the IBM. But the cool part is, if I go in today and let's say I did a Lenovo T5400, whatever. We figured out how to do it. We got it working. Guess what? I did it once.
Now it's back in the appliance.
And I got every other Lenovo out there with that model now can do it. Right. So that's the beauty of what we've built. So we started building up this catalog, this analytics, if you will, of data. So that was the beauty of it. And now I can automate this process of moving this user. So the other piece, like we discussed with Mr. Pyle in the last segment, was because I have to kill your hard drive. If I put Windows 10 down, put your user state back, Kevin, where's all your software? It's not there, right? No. Okay. So before we do it, I inventoried your software. And what we end up doing is, once the system comes back online, automated, since I know you by serial number, because your host name is gone,
right.
I tied you back to who you were before, where you were in Active Directory. I put your software back in place as well. And by the way, I can switch 32-bit applications to 64 at this point, right?
Right.
I want.
Yeah.
Put your user state
But you
back.
can also eliminate some that IT doesn't want on their computer.
You know what? You bring up an excellent point. We actually had a client do this. And what they did is the following, and using this tool, right, was Outlook. Put it on, everybody used it, right? Adobe, whatever. Pick the top 4. Out of all the other software products, they actually did not automatically put it down on the boxes, but what they did do, because BigFix supports this, is created a self-service portal that they had all these packages pre-imaged up there. So if you wanted WinZip, you would just go out and click it and install it.
And deploy, right.
Guess what? 6 months later, 76% of their software was never redeployed.
See,
it's huge. So attrition, but huge cost savings, right?
A huge cost savings.
Absolutely. So that was the great part. Now, and folks had asked, and I know you had asked me this a minute ago, was, okay, Windows 10 migration is done. What, is there any leave behind, right? Is there any use out of BigFix? And I'm going to say yes. So what we're looking at here, what we're showing in these segments is leveraging the BigFix technology for the purpose of this Windows 10 adoption, because we know it's coming, right? But BigFix itself is an endpoint management tool. So it works on Windows, Linux, Macs, all these things. Some of the other things that we were leveraging in this case is, well, what about hard drive encryption? Windows 10 has a great solution. Actually, even going back to the other versions of Windows, BitLocker, right? Macintosh has File Vault. Linux has LUKS. I don't know how to pronounce that in the acronym name, but Linux. So what we were able to do as well is to identify machines that have TPM module, have BitLocker, whether it's enabled or not. And even if they're running Windows 10 or even during a we're going to turn BitLocker on. We're going to enable TPM. We're going to turn BitLocker to go on.
Right.
So we're managing this stuff well after the Windows 10 adoption is done. And again, I mentioned before that software inventory. Some of the other very good usefulness out of this is we can do software usage and analysis, which is not just the inventory of software, but it's also counting how often do you use that piece of software. Well, let's think about it. At the end of the day.
So it's auditing software as you go.
And usage.
Wow.
So if you notice you're over licensed on something, or you have a new guy start and you need an expensive app, and you go in there and go, hey, here's 4 guys that haven't run it in 5 months, click a button, remove it from them, deploy it to him, you're still in compliance.
Well, also, and you got companies coming in that want to do audits against you. You got all the documentation. You know where everything is.
And that's a great add-on. And I will say, BigFix is known. So the top guys, the Price Waterhouse and those folks, they know and recognize BigFix. And if you're running the BigFix inventory and you tell them they're doing it, they've seen it 100 other places. As long as they look and validate that you have it set up correctly, they're going to accept your software audit report.
You know, this sounds great for the big guys, right? I got 1,000 desktops. I got 2,000 desktops. What about the small guys, 300, 200 desktops that, you know, let's be honest, it's a lot easier to manage 200 than it is 20,000.
I will absolutely say that, right? And we find that as well, Kevin, that the bigger companies, right? Let's face it, they got a lot more. They do invest in tools, right? Because they have to. However, even the smaller companies, so how BigFix is licensed is really per the endpoint, right?
Okay.
So if you get, you know, and the Windows 10 piece, which is called the OS deployment bare metal, comes out of the lifecycle module.
Okay.
So it's X dollars per endpoint. So the cost to you as a 10 or 100 desktop place versus me as a 10,000 is based on our number of endpoints.
Okay.
Right. So it's affordable, and again, the add-on to that is well after that Windows 10 piece is done is whether I'm pushing software, I need asset management, inventory, all these features. That's what BigFix gives you. And by the way, it does it on the network or off the network.
So I think, I mean, working with Champion that's done these large deployments, we bring all that expertise even to that SMB account.
Correct. Absolutely. And you know what? That's what I think gives us the edge at the moment. Because like I said, I've worked with BigFix for years. You know, I was a fan of it. A lot of people have it out there. What the additional features that Champion has put into the tool, and it's specifically around this Windows 10 piece, I think is what sets us apart at the moment, to be honest with you.
Well, thanks again for spending some time with us here on Champion TV. We'll make sure we give you more information ongoing.
Thank you.